Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking what honestly feels like a gripping true crime story. But it isn't about a bank heist or a midnight robbery. It's actually about the largest corporate fraud in history. Picture this. It's the 1990s. Stock market tickers are endlessly climbing, sleek glass skyscrapers define the skyline, and confident executives in very expensive suits are seen as the ultimate heroes of the new millennium's unstoppable prosperity. But then, the music just screeches to a halt. A titan of the American economy, a total darling of Wall Street, simply vanishes in a matter of weeks, leaving behind a hollow shell and a massive trail of devastation. This is the story of a meticulously crafted lie. This is the rise and ruin of Enron. To truly understand the gravity of this collapse, we really have to grasp the sheer scale of the company. Enron wasn't some scrappy startup flying under the radar. No way. It was the seventh largest company in America. Employees wore its logo with absolute pride. Investors treated its stock like literal gold. It was a pillar of the American economy. So it begs the question, how does the seventh largest company in the entire country just disappear?
Okay, let's dive into this jarring contrast. To the outside world, Enron's public image was absolutely flawless, pulling in billions, widely considered the smartest company in the room. But behind closed doors, their private reality was a rotting financial foundation built on massive hidden debt and phantom profits. It was a complete illusion.
Chapter 1, The Illusion of Success. The smartest guys in the room.
Let's look at how this company actually built its untouchable reputation during the booming 1990s. It all started back in 1985, when a former economist named Kenneth Lay founded Enron through a simple merger of two natural gas pipeline companies. But Lay wanted way more than just a sleepy utility firm. He brought in Jeffrey Skilling, a guy who saw the future of energy not in moving gas through pipes, but in trading it. By the early 90s, Enron successfully lobbied for the deregulation of energy markets. This was huge. It allowed them to act as a middleman, profiting wildly from the natural volatility of power prices. They were trading contracts like stocks, and it literally made them billions. By the year 2000, Fortune magazine named them the most innovative company in America for the sixth year running. They were absolute masters of the market, but behind that innovation was a deeply flawed core. You see, Enron's internal culture was incredibly toxic. Under Skilling's leadership, the company became completely obsessed with its stock price. It wasn't just about being a profitable business, it was about being the most profitable. They implemented a brutal system called rank and yank. Employees were forced to compete ruthlessly against one another. If you didn't hit your extreme performance targets, you were yanked, meaning you were fired. This hyper-competitive environment created a culture where the ends, specifically boosting that stock price, always justified the means. And when their legitimate growth started to slow down in the early 2000s, instead of admitting it to Wall Street, leadership made a fatal choice. They decided to fake it.
Chapter 2, Anatomy of a Scam, the Murder Weapon.
All right, let's put on our detective hats and peel back the layers of this financial heist. This right here is the central mystery we are looking at today. It's one thing to fudge a few numbers on an expense report, but how do you hide billions of dollars in massive losses in plain sight, right under the noses of regulators, auditors, and Wall Street analysts? Well, they did it using two main tricks.
Now, what's really interesting about this first concept is that it was completely legitimate. Enron just horribly abused it. It's called mark-to-market accounting. They literally fabricated revenue out of thin air. Under normal rules, if you sign a 20-year contract to build a power plant, you count the profit year by year as you actually earn the money. But under Enron's twisted rules, they would estimate how much money they might make over those 20 years and count that entire, highly speculative amount as actual profit today. Think about that. It's exactly like celebrating a massive lottery win before you've even bought the ticket. It allowed them to show massive profits on paper while bringing in zero actual cash. And this brilliantly illustrates their second trick, which involved special purpose entities, or SPEs. When an Enron investment inevitably failed, like a disastrous power plant project in India or a botched broadband venture, they couldn't let those losses hurt their stock price. So they created shell companies. Honestly, think of these SPEs as secret trash cans. Enron would offload their debt and failed projects into these secret trash cans, moving the garbage completely off their official books so investors wouldn't see it. And who controlled these entities? Enron's own chief financial officer, Andrew Fastow, who used them to hide billions in debt while keeping Enron's main balance sheet looking flawless.
To truly understand the deception, just look at the contrast. In their public books, Enron showed a pristine financial state filled with fake mark-to-market profits. But secretly, their SPE trash cans held the hidden garbage, massive, crippling debt. By using this incredible complexity, leadership intentionally blinded investors to the truth. They built a financial house of cards that looked magnificent from the outside, but was entirely hollow on the inside.
Chapter 3. The House Collapses, the Unraveling of the Lie. You can only hide the garbage for so long, right? As the 2000s rolled on, the pressure to maintain this illusion caused immense panic. The rot was so incredibly deep that even Enron's own insiders were terrified. In 2001, an Enron vice president named Sharon Watkins wrote an anonymous memo directly to founder Ken Lay. She warned him that the company was going to, quote, implode in a wave of accounting scandals. It is a chilling piece of corporate history. She saw the writing on the wall, but tragically, her warnings were largely ignored by the top brass, who were desperate to keep the music playing. Meanwhile, outside the company walls, the illusion was cracking. Journalists at Fortune magazine began asking this exact glaring question. They looked at Enron's financial statements and asked, if you are making billions in revenue, why do you have so little actual cash in the bank? It was the thread that would unravel the whole sweater. And the response from Enron's executive suite? The silence grew deafening. They had no good answer because the money wasn't real. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds into an absolute avalanche. In August 2001, we have the Watkins warning memo. By October, the dam breaks. The Securities and Exchange Commission officially launches an investigation. Suddenly, the garbage in those shell companies could no longer be hidden. Enron was forced to admit they'd overstated their earnings by hundreds of millions of dollars. The stock price went into free fall. And then, on December 2nd, 2001, the smartest company in the room shocked the globe by filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A titan of industry completely disintegrated in a matter of months.
Chapter 4. The Human Cost. When the music stopped.
So the crucial point is, this isn't just a story about numbers on a spreadsheet. The victims weren't just big, faceless Wall Street firms. They were the thousands of Enron employees who had been actively encouraged by leadership to invest their entire life savings into Enron stock. They were told the company was strong. But when the collapse hit, that stock plummeted from a high of $90 a share to literal pennies.
The ripple effects were utterly heartbreaking. We are talking about thousands of employees walking out of their offices with their belongings in cardboard boxes, suddenly jobless. Their 401k retirement savings were completely vaporized in an instant. Everyday families lost their homes. And the worst part? While the executives who caused the mess had cashed out millions before the fall, the rank-and-file workers were left with nothing. It shattered a generation of trust in the American corporate system overnight. Chapter 5. Fallout and Final Lessons. The Courtroom and Legacy. The legal fallout was swift, severe, and sweeping. Let's look at the fates of the architects of this fraud. Jeffrey Skilling, the man who drove the toxic culture, was handed a 24-year prison term. Founder Kenneth Lay was convicted of multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy, though he died of a heart attack before he could be sentenced. Andrew Fastow, the CFO who built those secret trash cans, turned informant against his former bosses. But perhaps most shockingly, Arthur Andersen, one of the world's highly respected Big Five accounting firms and Enron's auditor, was found guilty of obstruction of justice for shredding documents. This scandal effectively destroyed one of the oldest accounting firms on the planet. The blast radius was so huge that the government had to intervene to force transparency back into the market. Out of the ashes of Enron came the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. This sweeping legislation mandated incredibly strict financial disclosures and enforced true auditor independence. The goal was to ensure that a deception on the scale of Enron could never happen again.
But beyond the laws, what can we actually learn from the story we unpacked in this explainer? Here are the core cultural takeaways. First, complexity is very often a shield for fraud. If a business model is too confusing to understand, that might be by design. Second, a very simple rule. If you can't explain exactly how a business makes its money, you probably shouldn't be investing in it. And finally, when an organization prioritizes short-term metrics, like a daily stock price, over long-term integrity, and demands results without questioning the process, catastrophe is truly inevitable.
Enron serves as a permanent, flashing warning light. It reminds us that the biggest risks to our economy aren't always found in the natural volatility of the market. They're often found right in the shadows of the boardroom. The house of cards eventually falls. It's really just a matter of time. So it leaves us with this question to ponder as we look at the corporate giants of our modern era. Are today's most complex companies hiding their own house of cards? If you want to keep peeling back the layers of the world's most complex stories, hit that subscribe button. We investigate the truth, decode the complexity, and structure the facts so you don't have to. I'll see you in the next explainer.